This is why I hate the Arkansas Razorbacks.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today's show is all about rivalry and the future. First up, I'm breaking down why I hate the Arkansas Razorbacks and sharing my take on how the Ole Miss versus Arkansas game will play out this fall, even with some roster work that's left to be done. Then we shift gears and talk about Austin Simmons and what to expect from his first SEC home game as the starter, while we're discussing concerns about Bobby Petrino heading into his second year, especially in the light of the mass exodus that we have seen from Arkansas. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy offer even more perspectives on college football, the SEC, and yes, even Ole Miss. So I am in the middle of my worst day of recovery. No matter where you're watching this video from, no matter what's going on, the odds are I'm having a worse day than you. So if you're not a fan of Steven Willis, today's probably a pretty good day for you. But as I work through this recovery, which is going to be a day-by-day thing, I'm going to try and keep everybody as updated as humanly possible. You can check me out on social media. You see my X address down below. As soon as I fill up for tweeting and things like that, you know that I will put it out there. I'm not a private person. I am a person that advertises mostly what goes on. I believe completely in transparency. And that's kind of how I live my life. That's not just a business thing that goes on. So thank you, everybody that has taken a part to contribute to what's going on. If you're interested in contributing to my recovery and to this channel, the one things you can do is watch every single video that comes up on this channel. It doesn't matter if you pay attention, just put it on so we can get the view. Also subscribe and comment to our podcast apps and things like that. To let them know. That would be really cool. And if you're interested in doing a little bit more, you can join our subtext. Link is down in the description. It's only $5 per month. There's nothing going on right now. Do not expect anything to happen. But during football season especially, it really ramps up. And we kind of have fun going back and forth. And with the way that I'm active on social media, which will return as soon as I'm recovered and up and about, you will see the Locked On Ole Miss podcast grow to the next level, because I fully intend to take the next couple of weeks to kind of figure out, to take a breath, exhale, figure out what's going on, and figure out how I'm going to next level this channel, which is already the most watched channel in the history of Ole Miss Podcast. So thank you very much for that. So let's get to it on this day after surgery episode of Why I Hate the Arkansas Razorbacks. And we're going to jump right in it on 4th and 25. 4th and 25 is the reason I hate the Arkansas Razorbacks. I blame Hugh Freeze. I blame Brett Bielema. I blame the oblong football taking a perfect bounce when in any other kind it just goes. I blame the tackler not getting his hand on the arm of Hunter Henry. I blame a lot of stuff on that play, but I don't blame that it happened. I'm not upset that it happened. I realize that Ole Miss did not make the SEC championship game because of that play. I realize that likely cost Ole Miss an SEC title, and it likely cost them something even higher than that, potentially a national title. Alabama ended up winning it that year. Ole Miss ended up beating Alabama. So I get that happened. The thing that bothers me is the fact that it's been made a meme, and people have tried to find meaning of what's going on off of that event. The 4th and 25, whenever something bad happens to Ole Miss, 4th and 25 gets brought up, and I'm as guilty as anybody is doing it. I blame Arkansas for that because Arkansas was on the other side of it. It was a big win for them. They're excited about it. But That's one of the reasons I hate the Arkansas Razorbacks. The second thing is the fake superiority that Arkansas people have over Mississippi people. It's ingrained. It's real. You have a situation to where Arkansas fans, even in movies, they have one that he's talking about it. Well, at least I'm not Mississippi. And they're like, what? He's like, I'm not Mississippi. I'm from Arkansas, and at least there's somebody worse than us, which doesn't make sense. I've got family in Arkansas. I've driven there. And just like a lot of other places, for a couple of hours, you don't see anything. It's all 2-lane roads. It's pretty nasty. And Northwest Arkansas is fine. I mean, their stadium is kind of like a Jim Walter home, but Northwest Arkansas is fine. Bentonville, Rogers, that area. But whenever you get down around Little Rock, whenever you get down around Jonesboro, Batesville, different places inside the state of Arkansas, it's a bunch of 2-lane roads. It's like driving in the Mississippi Delta. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Arkansas trying to claim superiority over Mississippi is hilarious. Now, granted, the joke that I grew up with is, how do you know the toothbrush was invented in Arkansas? And somebody answers like, no. If it was invented anywhere else, they would call it a teeth brush. And so there's a little bit of superiority on both sides like that. But that's part of the reason this rivalry is so fun. Because they're easy to hate. They're enough like you to where you can really keep them at arm's length. They're more like Mississippi State than not. They don't want to be, but they are. And those two kind of get put in the same bucket from time to time. Now, the hatred isn't there because you don't deal with Arkansas fans on a daily basis unless you live in Jonesboro or in Little Rock or West Memphis or something like that. But the personality of the people act really similar, especially towards Ole Miss. It was really easy for Ole Miss baseball to start up a rivalry with the Arkansas Razorbacks to the point where Arkansas players are pretending to get hit by pitches. I think it was his name, Brian Walker or something like that, back in like 2007. There's a lot of antics. That rivalry bubbles up pretty quickly when these two schools get together because they're so different. They just are. Arkansas is probably more closely related to Mississippi State than not. Nice people, salt of the earth people. They just don't mesh well with Ole Miss people. And that is something to see. Speaking of not meshing well with Ole Miss people, Texas A&M. But that's another discussion altogether. And lastly, it's kind of similar to the Kentucky argument that I made on Tuesday. And that is, they're kind of in on basketball. And everybody likes to make fun of Missouri for not being a cultural fit in the Southeastern Conference. Someone's like, should Missouri go to the Big Ten? If we could just get rid of Missouri, everything would be perfect. No. The original team that did not fit in the SEC is Kentucky, and they've been here since 1933 or something like that. Arkansas is in that just a little bit. Whereas Kentucky, in the middle of October, is doing nothing but college basketball videos. They're not even paying attention to football. I mean, surely they have some football fans, but they're not paying attention to football. Arkansas is kind of dipping their toe in it. They're doing basketball videos in October, drawing really well, partly because their football team is so bad, and partly because they just hired John Calipari as a basketball coach at that point. Arkansas made the Sweet 16. They do really well with basketball. And in that way, they don't really fit in the SEC, if you want to look at it that way. They're kind of in the same boat as Missouri and Kentucky. Now, everybody fits in the SEC because there's not really a fit in the SEC, but you get my point. We have to see. Like Texas A&M, we can pretty much say at this point they fit. They're not very good. We call them Texas 8-4 for a reason, but they fit. We don't know about Oklahoma and Texas because they're so new. In 10 years, we're going to find out if Texas and Oklahoma fit in the Southeastern Conference in the same way we did with Arkansas, Missouri, and Kentucky gets a pass just because they're so old, but Kentucky doesn't fit either. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, this is a revenge game for the Arkansas Razorbacks, but will that matter when the Hogs roll into town? We will find out. Stay tuned. So we got a lot of stuff going on. Like I said, this is one of the worst days of my life going on right now. I'm recovering from the operation. The surgery would have been yesterday, and I'm working towards recovery. I'm going to get better fairly rapidly, and sometime within the next day or two, you should see me appear on social media again. If something goes wrong, wife is going to tweet that out. Okay. So no news is good news when it comes to this, and I'm just going to recover what's going on. My goal in the surgery is to make it back in a couple of weeks. I don't know if that's going to happen. Brain surgery can be weird. Side effects can happen. Last time I was in ICU for basically a month in 2019. If I can just recover normally, if I'm due a good recovery, I think I should be able to resume doing a show sometime in early May. But we have to worry about facial paralysis and things like that. So there's a lot of things that could happen. Mortality-wise, I should be fine. But there's the side effect things that could happen that everybody needs to be aware of and what's going on. Anyway, let's get back to it. This game in Oxford, Mississippi, it's a big game, and it's a revenge game for Bobby Petrino, Sam Pittman, and the Arkansas Razorbacks against the Ole Miss Rebels, because they beat the holy hell out of the Arkansas Razorbacks in Fayetteville. Ole Miss normally doesn't play well in Fayetteville. They ripped them to shreds that Saturday afternoon in Fayetteville, Arkansas. It was a game that Jackson Dart set the single or the career total offense, the single game total offense, the most touchdown pass. Basically, every record that can be set throwing the football, Jackson Dart got that day. He even broke Archie Manning's unbreakable total offense record, the one that stood in the SEC for like 50 years. He was able to break that as well. And you had Jordan Watkins that broke the single game receiving record as well. Ole Miss was just throwing bombs. The idea of the game was go deep. And if you don't think that Arkansas isn't thinking about that, you're probably wrong. Listen, you had Arkansas reporters talking about Ole Miss running up the score. They kind of turned on Lane Kiffin after that game, and honestly, they should have a little bit. But like I said, I don't think it will matter this year. But there is hope for Arkansas fans in this game. Not much, not a lot, but some hope. And that hope comes from Bobby Petrino and Taylan Green. Those are the two players to watch in this game. And yes, I understand the mass exodus of players of Arkansas out the door. Heck, 3 of them came to Ole Miss. So I get it. But when you look at what Arkansas can do offensively, let's go back and look at what Ole Miss and Texas A&M did in that game when Bobby Petrino was there in the second half of that game. Texas A&M became a machine in the second half of that football game, driving the ball up and down the field. And it was an interception by John Saunders in the end zone, and it was a blocked field goal away from that game at least going to overtime and potentially Ole Miss losing. And everybody making fun that Jimbo Fisher, you know, he needs to keep his job. And if he'd have won that game, he might have kept his job. If we're just going to be real about it, he would have probably still be the Texas 8-4 coach if he'd have won that football game. When Bobby Petrino went to Arkansas, they scored like 27 points or something like that on Ole Miss. In a year that nobody scored a lot of points, Bobby Petrino was able to put points on the board in that Ole Miss game. Now, granted, Ole Miss kind of was up like 38-14 or something at halftime. Some ludicrous number to where that game was over and Arkansas was able to put points on the board after the fact. But they were still able to put points on the board. Ole Miss fans should probably be concerned about Bobby Petrino and Taylan Green, especially in the light of spring practice Lane Kiffin talking about concern in the secondary and work that needed to be done. If anybody is going to find a weakness and be able to exploit it, it is Bobby Petrino. And when you have a second-year quarterback like Taylan Green in the system, he's going to be a better version of himself. And he was pretty good last year. He got injured against Ole Miss and had to come out of the game. Bobby Petrino still found a way to make that work. Green has a chance to be a weapon for Arkansas this season. It should be pretty interesting. And there's a lot of questions for Ole Miss in this game that need to be answered. I think Ole Miss is going to likely win this game. I think they're going to be favored by like 14 points going into this game because of the aforementioned mass exodus that hit the Arkansas Razorbacks while they're transitioning over into a basketball school that I talked about last segment. But we will see. There's so many questions for Arkansas this season. It is early enough in the year that you're going to face Sam Pittman. He will still be there. If it was a game in the beginning of November, the way it has been in recent years, I think that Sam Pittman could be done. It could be a lame duck staff, and Ole Miss just kind of rolls in the game. The way it's set up, you're going to get an Arkansas team that's pretty jacked up to play the game with revenge on their mind. They're going to play hard with an offensive coordinator and a quarterback that can be dangerous. That's what Ole Miss fans need to take away from this football game. Like I said, is it going to matter? I don't think so. I honestly, they had such a mass exodus. I think they're going to be trying to tread water this year, and they're going to hit the portal hard next season because I do think Sam Pittman is probably going to retire after this year. It just feels that way. So we'll be able to check him out and what happens with Arkansas in that game. In our final segment, Austin Simmons faces another milestone for him to get over on his checklist of first-year SEC starters, and that is his first home SEC start. Will the home crowd help or add pressure? We'll break it all down next. So Austin Simmons' first SEC start and the first SEC road start come against the Kentucky Wildcats. Piece of cake there, right? Right. His first home start will be against the Arkansas Razorbacks in a game that is notoriously wacky. It's just a wild game. Now, I do not expect any of the pressure to build up and affect Austin Simmons. I don't think this is that type of game. I think Ole Miss at that point is going to be, 2-0 or something like that? Yeah, 2-0. They have the Arkansas game, then they play Tulane, then they play LSU. That Tulane game's a little bit of a trap. John Summerall's a heck of a coach. But we're not going to do a Why I Hate video on Tulane because we're just going to do the SEC games. So Austin Simmons and the skill position players, with the advantage that Ole Miss seemingly has going against that Arkansas defense, especially in the secondary, has a chance to be a difference maker. Remember, Austin Simmons actually threw a touchdown pass last season against the Arkansas Razorbacks, hitting Caden Lee. Those two are going to be working again. You have DeSean Stribling. You have Harrison Wallace. I think Caleb Odom is going to be a factor. Luke Haas, the former Arkansas transfer. Daquan Wright. With what they have in the running back room, I'm not sure that Arkansas can match up with the skill players that Ole Miss has. For better or for worse. Worse if you're Arkansas, better if you're Ole Miss. But it should be interesting to see how it all sets up. Because if you look at the season, you have an opening against Georgia State. You have the Kentucky game that you should win. Should be favored by 10 to 12 points in that game, even on the road. You should be favored by 14 to 17 against Arkansas. So that's a 3-0 start. Then you have Tulane, and then you have the next one, which is going to be the Why I Hate video about LSU, which should be pretty interesting because while I hate LSU, I actually kind of like LSU, so it's going to be a weird video. We'll have to see how I stream of consciousness go through it. A lot of this in these Why I Hate videos is stream of consciousness videos. And I just wanted to see exactly how that would work out. Again, my surgery was yesterday. If you haven't heard anything to this point, probably no news is good news. Today, one of the worst recovery days that I will have. Going to be a little bit better tomorrow, a little bit better the day after that. But when you look at what you need to do, please watch or put on every video that we have. Listen to our podcast videos on all of our podcast channels. If you want to do more, join our subtext. That's $5 a month. I get every single penny of it. And it's just in lieu of a GoFundMe. It can help us out during this couple of month period. If you decide you don't want to do it during football season, appreciate it. That's going to be awesome. But I would appreciate you looking and doing that as well. So should be pretty interesting. And looking at where Ole Miss is, I'm curious to see what happens, honestly. So thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the #1 Ole Miss podcast. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On SEC with Chris Gordy. He will get you through spring football, SEC baseball, all the way through the next couple of months until we hit SEC Media Days. Check them out. You can find Locked On SEC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.